Activate Shadowwood Archive. Date of entry 16th of September 2019. Agent Designation Gwen Stacy. Norton inspected the body that was sprawled out across the pavement. The faint light of the morning sun revealed the telltale signs of hypothermia. The deceased had clearly frozen over the course of the night. This was weird, as it was still summer.
"Reckon it was aliens, then?"
yawned Jack as he took a swig from his travel mug. "Of course it was," I said. "Why? Have you got any other ideas?"
"Could have been—"
He paused, before embarrassedly uttering,
"a very cold gust of wind."
After a few silent minutes of close examination, Norton finally spoke.
"There's nothing on the body that's too suspicious. Possibly signs of a struggle, but nothing obviously extraterrestrial. I say we hand this poor fellow over to our morticians, and play it by ear from there."
I nodded, and started searching through my phone for the contact numbers of our morticians. Technically, they weren't ours, as in they weren't official Shadowwood staff. They were just normal NHS workers that we paid to do odd jobs for us. Finally, someone picked up. A young man who spoke with the slightest hint of a West Country accent.
"Funny you should say that,"
he remarked in response to my description of the corpse.
"You're the second lot to come to us with a hypothermic. Some bobbies dragged one in only a few hours ago."
I hurriedly thanked him before hanging up. "Norton, Jack, I've got some bad news. Another body's been found in a similar state. The police are involved." Having to work with the police is generally bad for business. It's hard enough dealing with the bureaucracy and the egos. Throw in the task of having to cover up the existence of alien life, and you've got a pretty tough job on your hands. The police station was one of those places where time stood still. We could have stood there for hours before the woman at the desk finally noticed us. Out of boredom, I started reading the sun-damaged posters that were haphazardly dotted across the walls. "Hand in your knife, save a life," said one with a pretty sad-looking teenager on it. "We're not hasty about your safety," said another. I stopped when I reached, "To prevent infection, use protection." If I read one more rhyming slogan, I'd go mad.
"Can I help you?"
the woman at the desk mumbled at last.
"Ah, yes,"
said Norton with a polite smile.
"We'd like to talk to the superintendent regarding a case. It's rather important, so if you'd just send us through, that'd be great."
She looked up at him, clearly irate.
"Have you made an appointment?" "Well, no, we haven't, but this is an urgent affair. We're Shadowwood, you see."
The woman raised an eyebrow.
"Never heard of you." "Look us up on your records, then," asserted Jack. "You'll see that we've got top clearance."
Desk lady tapped away at her keyboard, unimpressed.
"Ah, yes. I found you now. Shadowwood. What are you lot? Spies or something?"
Norton went to correct her, but she spoke first.
"I don't really care. Go on through to her office. I assume you know where it is, what with your top clearance and everything." "Cheers, love. Much appreciated,"
said Jack, with a cheeriness that bordered on mockery.
"Well, she was pleasant,"
Jack remarked, as we strolled towards the superintendent's office. "I'll set you two up on a date since you liked her that much," I joked, earning me a light punch on the arm. It was at that point that I realized the amount of people that had put aside their work to stare at us. I suppose that was to be expected. They probably don't get many visitors other than the ones they've arrested. Norton knocked on the frosted glass of the office door. The thing promptly swung open, and a tired face engulfed in wild, frizzy hair poked out.
"Yes?"
queried the superintendent.
"We're here to talk to you about a case your people might be investigating," Norton announced. "We're Shadowwood."
Instantly, the woman's face dropped. She knew who we were.
"Oh, gosh. Okay, then. You better come on in."
In the office, Norton placed himself on a pretty cushy leather seat facing the superintendent, whilst Jack and I were relegated to stiff plastic chairs.
"What can I do for you, then?" "This morning we found a man who appears to have died from hypothermia. Apparently your police officers had a similar encounter. Due to the anomalous circumstances, shall we say, we have decided that this case falls under our jurisdiction." "So you've waltzed in here to tell me that you're going to take over one of my cases?"
"Not take over exactly," I butted in. "You're free to carry on with your own investigations, but we'll have to extract some of the evidence for security reasons."
"I'm not having this,"
she said, raising her voice slightly.
"I've been superintendent here for 3 years now, and I've not heard a peep from you lot, so don't think you can just turn up and boss me around. I mean, there's no concrete proof that the two deaths are even connected."
Jack chortled involuntarily.
2 people have frozen to death in one night. Do you really think that's a coincidence?"
The superintendent glared at him.
"You want my case? Fine, take it. But everything you do will be carried out under my authority. This is a police investigation."
"So we do all the work, and you get to take the credit?"
said an outraged Jack.
"Thank you very much for the offer. We gladly accept. We'll be in touch."
Norton gabbled, rushing us out of the office before the situation got worse.
"See, this is why we work alone," Jack harumphed.
His face had turned an unflattering shade of red, slightly unnecessary rage pushing his blood vessels to the surface. "You need to work on your people skills," I remarked. The 2 bodies were already laid out for us when we entered the morgue. It was about 6 p.m. I've seen quite a few corpses in my time, never pleasant, but it gets easier. This was relatively tame compared to what I used to see back in the old days. Tabloids love bodies. For them, it was always the gorier the better. I hated those jobs. At least now, when I see death, I can do something about it. I stepped out into the corridor for a bit of air when I heard the distinctive squeak of a mortuary trolley. It was being pushed by a pretty pale young man, maybe the one I spoke to on the phone. That wasn't important, though. What I was more interested in was the body on the slab. They were covered by a sheet, as was procedure, but their hand was dangling off the edge of the edge, swaying back and forth. The hand was blistered with frostbite. I was certain it would be joining our pair of unfortunates.
"You're that bloody journalist, aren't you?"
spoke a voice from behind me. "No idea what you're talking about," I denied, before turning round to face the speaker.
"Yes, you do,"
he said from beneath his police helmet.
"You used to poke around our station with your mate trying to get a story. Right nuisance you were."
I had, in fact, met this man before. I wasn't going to let him know that, though. Too much bloody effort, without even getting into the whole confidentiality thing.
"Whatever,"
he dismissed.
"I'm here on a very important case, assisting a Black Ops team on a top-secret investigation, so I don't have time to stand about and chatter."
That Black Ops team wouldn't happen to be Shadowwood, would it?
"Are you trying to get a scoop out of me? Because I tell you one thing, I won't work with vultures like you. No way, no how. You journalists make me sick.
No respect for the way we do things.
Nice to meet you. I'm Gwen Stacy, Shadowwood's second in command. That made him straighten up a bit.
Oh, PC Barrow at your service, ma'am. Sorry about what I said. Didn't mean nothing by it.
It's fine. We should probably head in there with the others, if you insist on sticking around. Jack was watching as Norton examined the two bodies. Two bodies? What about the one I saw in the corridor? The frostbite blisters were unmistakable. Maybe I got it wrong. Maybe they weren't connected, but what was the chance? Two people freezing to death over a summer night was pretty unlikely, but there being a third identical death that was completely unrelated to the others, that was basically impossible.
Who's this bloke?
Asked Jack.
I'm PC Barrow. I was sent here to...
Sorry. 1 second. I interjected. What happened to the third body, Jack?
Third body? We haven't heard anything about that, have we, Norton?
He absently shook his head in response. Clearly something more important had grabbed his attention.
As I was saying,
Barrow continued with a frown,
I've been sent by the superintendent to help you on this case. Have you noticed anything unusual about the deceased?
Yes, very unusual,
confirmed Norton with macabre excitement. Take a look at this. See the patterns of bruising on them? Almost exactly identical. Jack leant down to assess the purplish marks.
Looks like something grabbed them tight and wasn't too keen on letting go.
That's not all, said Norton, as he gestured towards 5 small circular wounds on the side of one of the bodies. The 5 wounds were repeated on the corpse's other side and replicated again on the other man. What do you think could have done this? I asked. Jack gave me a puzzled glance.
I thought we agreed that it was a...
I shot him a look to shut him up. He must have forgotten that Barrow was in the room. Rule number 1, never say the A word in front of people who aren't in the know. The A word is aliens, by the way, not arse. PC Barrow squatted down and took a closer look at the damage.
So, all this brushing and stuff, is this what killed them? Not the cold?
I don't think so, I put forward. The wounds would have been painful, but not fatal.
I reckon it was some sort of fucked up serial killer type. Kidnapping people off the street, beating them up a bit,
then chucking them into some sort of walk-in fridge to kill them slowly.
Barrow said this as if he almost wanted it to be true. If he managed to catch this theoretical killer, it would definitely be good for his career. Staticky garble blasted out from Barrow's walkie-talkie. Sounded like nonsense to me, but he managed to decipher it.
Shit,
he stated bluntly.
What's wrong?
Said Norton.
Something's happening at the cinema in town. People are flooding out the entrance. They haven't got any officers inside, so we don't know what's going on yet.
Jack authoritatively placed his hand on the policeman's shoulder.
You should probably go help sort that out then, shouldn't you? I will, as long as you 3 come with.
Hang on, that's not our job, Norton protested.
The police are helping Shadowwood, so Shadowwood should help the police. At least for the time being.
It's all right, you lot. Go, I said, to prevent the eruption of an argument. I'll keep an eye on this place, run some tests. You should make sure everything's okay in town. I nodded at Norton subtly. He knew I was planning something. As soon as they'd left, my mind started racing. I needed to know what had happened to that third body, and the only way to find out was to look for it. I wandered the corridors of the mortuary, briefly glimpsing into the rooms, trying to find the frozen man. The only sound was the endless buzz of fluorescent lights, broken occasionally by the clattering of equipment or the slamming lids of the body boxes. If I didn't find the man on an autopsy table, I'd soon have to start going through those boxes myself. I didn't like that idea at all. Felt like I'd be disturbing them. Barrow pulled up on the curb, sirens blaring. Jack and Norton jumped out the car, pushing their way through the fleeing crowds towards the cinema. Jack shouted to Norton over the terrified cries of the rushing horde.
What do we do if it's not aliens? What if we're walking into some sort of terrorist thing? How are we going to deal with that?
We'll do what we always do, Jack. Try to save as many people as possible. I have a feeling this isn't a human threat, though. If it was a gunman or something, the police should be dealing with it, but they're not. Either they're trying to make us do their dirty work, or whatever's scared all these people is too strange for the police to handle. The difference between the streets outside and the lobby within the cinema was day and night. Whilst the outside was chaos, a distinctly eerie peace permeated through the abandoned picture palace. Jack reached over the bar and scoffed a handful of popcorn. Norton made it very clear how he felt about that.
Phoned anything yet?
Asked PC Barrow as he strode in.
Sorry about the delay. Just had to call the superintendent.
That's all right, and no, nothing yet. I can't imagine what would cause such terror, but with any luck it might be connected to our case, said Norton.
So you think it could be our serial killer then? Good thing I've got this.
The police officer displayed his taser with worrying enthusiasm. The three men searched the cinema room by room. Some of the screens had been left running, food and drinks scattered on the floor, films playing to non-existent audiences. The scramble that led to this place being deserted left plenty of evidence. What caused the scramble, however, did not. At least not until they reached screen 9. Norton pushed open the door, revealing a chasm of teeming darkness. "Find the light switch, would you, PC Barrow?" he requested. Barrow nodded and went to complete his task. Jack and Norton pushed on into the black. Screen 9 was laid out like all the other rooms they'd searched through. The familiar layout meant they could navigate their way despite their near-total lack of vision. The only source of light was the flickering green of a fire exit sign, but that was hardly enough to be useful. The Shadowwood agents flung themselves on some front-row seats and waited for Barrow to do his job. "Smells a bit strange in here, don't you think?" Norton observed. "Well, it is a cinema. Dozens of people sat in one room for hours. Smells do tend to build up after a while. You know, farts and things. That's very mature. You're right, though. It does smell weird. How come PC Plod's taking so long with the lights?"
"I don't know. I'm sure it's nothing,"
said Norton, as if he was in a rush to get his words out.
"You all right, Norton?"
"Yeah, fine." Again, rushed. "Mate, what aren't you telling me?" "Something very big and very cold is breathing onto my neck. Alien? I should think so. Run? Definitely." The two dashed from their seats. Norton gripped Jack's arm as they bolted towards the fire exit sign, the only glimmer of light. A piercing animal shriek ruptured through the dark. Jack was torn from Norton's hold and was pinned to the ground. The man flailed, hoping to beat back his attacker, but to no avail. An impossible weight was on top of him, smothering him. Razor-sharp claws sunk into his sides, assuring him that escape was impossible. He felt the creature's thick muscles pulsating. The world was getting colder, so much colder. Jack's life ended with a final, icy breath. Norton kicked the dark wildly until he impacted something tough. The creature snarled. Norton continued his barrage. He hit something soft, the beast's tongue or underbelly or something. Whatever it was, the pain caused the creature to recoil and scuttle off back into the unseen. At last the lights came back on, but the thing had escaped. Jack crawled his way back into consciousness, on account of his unusual immortality. He looked up to see what was previously hidden in the dark. Torn fabric and shredded foam coated the floor. Burrowed into nearly every one of the seats was a putrid, leathery egg. They had been standing in the monster's nest the whole time. "You looking for something?" I jumped slightly, thought I was alone. An Asian woman wearing a plain mortuary uniform was poking her head around a corner. "Sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. It's just you've walked up and down this corridor about 5 times. Is there someone you're after?" "Yes, I suppose so. There were 2 bodies brought in this morning, both dead due to hypothermia and frostbite. I saw a third come in this evening, also hypothermia, I'm pretty sure, but it wasn't put with the other 2. Why was that?" The mortician sized me up for a second, before asking for some sort of ID. "That was fair enough. I suppose you probably shouldn't show corpses to any old weirdo that wanders into a morgue." "Gwen, Stacy, are you family of the deceased?" "No, I'm with a special investigations group. Shadowwood."
"Shadowwood? Oh, right. Why are you asking about that body, then?"
"Because something might be very, very wrong."
"I shouldn't think so. Don't worry. I'm following Shadowwood's orders."
"What do you mean, our orders?"
"When the frozen bodies started coming in, I was ordered to deal with them secretly for security reasons. That was what Shadowwood wanted, wasn't it?"
"Not as far as I know,"
I stated grimly. "How long has this been going on for? And how many have died?" The woman hesitated, before nervously scribbling some coordinates onto a notepad and handing me the sheet of paper.
"If you want to understand the scale of this, go to that location," she said. "I don't know much about Shadowwood, but I do know that you're dangerous. Whatever's happening doesn't involve me, all right?"
"Fair enough. Thank you for whatever this is." With that, I set off out of the mortuary, leaving with a head full of questions. Jack, Norton, and PC Barrow walked back towards the lobby.
"So, was there anything interesting in Screen 9?
"Nothing at all, Barrow. You didn't miss out on anything,"
lied Jack. Barrow had missed out on something interesting. Well, an alien nest would have been interesting to him. To us at Shadowwood, that sort of thing is about as extraordinary as a slice of toast. After that short exchange, there was a period of license. Norton and Jack anxiously scanned their surroundings for any signs of the elusive extraterrestrial. They would have to go back for the eggs later. For now, their main priority was catching the mother before it could lay more.
"We should probably head back to the station and let the superintendent know that."
Barrow's speech trailed off as he caught sight of the street outside. At first, Norton was sure that he was mistaken in what he had seen. Once he stepped out of the cinema, he was certain that he was not.
"Oh, shit,"
Jack muttered. The chaotic crowd had scarpered. In their place, a trail of frozen bodies.
Fucking hell, PC Barrow remarked. Norton became flustered. I don't understand how this could have happened so quickly. It's still out there, said Jack. We let it get away once. We won't do it again. What do you mean you let it get away once? What really happened in Screen 9? This was all done by a sort of wild animal. That's all you need to know. Norton dismissed. Oh, no. You Shadowwood people aren't fooling me. I know what this is all about. Jack looked concerned. Do you? Oh, yes. This is all deep state stuff, isn't it? Some sort of mutant bioweapon that escaped a lab. I'm right, aren't I? Oh, wow, yeah, you're completely right. You figured out our secret. Well done, mate. Jack said coldly. Barrow displayed a prideful smirk. The other two men would have found this funny if it wasn't for the grisly sight which preceded them. A muffled scream emanated from a nearby alley. The men darted towards the cry, leaping over the bodies that littered the road. Upon rushing into the alley, they turned round a corner, but were met with a dead end. A solid brick wall stood in their path. For a moment they did nothing but stand, motionless in an uneasy halt. Something fell from above with a bone-crunching thud. Yet another frostbitten corpse. The men looked up. The creature, finished with its victim, crawled slowly and deliberately down the wall, its claws leaving punctures in the brick. Its scales shone a brilliant metallic blue. Except it wasn't blue, not a shade PC Barrow had ever seen. The colour was alien. That was the only way to describe it. What is that thing? He stuttered, keeping his eyes locked on the approaching killer. If I was to take a guess, Norton began, a cold-blooded reptile that's very far from home. Likely it came from a planet that's extremely hot. This world is far too cold. Our sun can't sustain it, so it has to gain heat from any source possible, including people. The thing dropped from the wall, arching its back, preparing to pounce. Jack shot back out the alley, and a few seconds later the others did the same. The monster gave chase, its mighty tail tearing up the pavement behind it. When Norton and Barrow emerged from the alley, they found that Jack had left. They'd been abandoned, and somehow the creature knew it. When it came out onto the street, it had given up its frenzied pursuit. Instead, it moved towards them menacingly, taking its time to crush its ice-ridden casualties beneath its unearthly mass. It kept its eyes locked on the two men, who had already found themselves frozen. The hulking heap of scales, claws, and teeth clearly acted only on animal instinct. It had no greater intelligence. Despite this, Norton was sure that it was gloating. Its predator's mouth twisted into a smile. The roar of exhausts echoed down the street. "Oi, mate!" shouted Jack from the window of a lorry. "You want heat? Get a load of this, pal." He slammed his foot on the gas, not moving, but pushing the engine to its limits. The monster let out a cannibal's howl and hurtled towards the vehicle. It flung itself at the bonnet and began tearing its way towards the engine. Jack released the parking brake and began racing forward, carrying the creature with him. Norton snatched Barrow's taser and aimed carefully. The lorry began swaying as the alien fed on the immense heat. Norton pulled the trigger, sending immeasurable amounts of volts into the creature. It released a pained cry before seizing up and cascading onto the road, joining its prey. Jack hopped out and saw that the great beast was still alive, just.
They'd find a place for it and its eggs in the Shadowwood vaults. It wasn't a threat anymore.
"Congratulations,"
said Barrow, with uncharacteristic formality.
"I believe once you neutralised the threat, I was meant to hand you this."
He drew a large wad of cash and held it before Norton, who snatched it up and threw it to the ground with disgust. The coordinates led me to a clearing in a forest outside of Guildford. The clearing was populated by little mounds of dirt. I instantly knew what this place was. A burial site. All those frozen bodies hidden in our name. I took the time to contemplate each one. All these people, with lives and families, killed by a force they'd never understand. We could have put a stop to this earlier, maybe even saved them all if only we'd been told. Secrets are important. You have to know that if you work for Shadowwood. But no secret is worth this much life. A twig snapped. I spun around. The superintendent stood there, a briefcase in her hand, a pistol in the other.
"We didn't know what was killing these people," she declared. "We couldn't stop what was happening. But we had to carry on, you see. We had to keep doing our jobs. Then I realised this is why Shadowwood exists, so I let you find that body. But you weren't meant to find all this. Your partners have been paid a quarter of your reward. This briefcase contains the rest of it. Take it, Gwen Stacy. You deserve it after all. You've saved Guildford."
Do you think I want your blood money? Do you think I want anything to do with you after seeing this? Why would you cover this up? Reputation? Fear? Were you just not bothered?
The woman went to open her mouth. I spoke first.
Whatever reason you have, it's not good enough. You're meant to keep people safe. If you can't do that, what good are you? Take the money. You don't have a choice. You can't tell the world what really happened. Even if the government knows what we've done, they won't do anything. It's not worth the risk of all this going public. Just take the money and go home. You'll get your justice somehow. Shadowwood has been covering up the existence of aliens for centuries. Do you not think we could make up some excuse to link you to this? Then, I'm sorry, Gwen. I only have one option. The superintendent raised the gun with a shaking hand. I wasn't sure what else to do, so I just bloody ran straight at her. She fired. Missed. Clumsily, she fired again. The bullet scraped my leg. The blood soaked through. I'd never felt pain like that. Still, though, I kept fucking running. I flung myself into the woman and wrestled the gun from her hand. She looked up at me. I saw the regret, the shame. I almost felt bad. But then I glanced back at those little mounds of dirt. Taking a deep breath, I held the gun to her back. By the authority placed in me by the Shadowwood Institute, I'm putting you under arrest. You do not have to say anything, but anything you do say may be used against you as evidence. It's over.